Hey guys, Arthur here with O&P Digital Designer. Today I wanted to do a workflow video training on how to go from start to finish from a 3D scan of a standing BK amputee with their prosthetic on, and then how to take their sound side limb, mirror it over to their device side, and then create a cosmesis from the shaping of their regular limb from nothing more than just a scan. This is typically a more advanced workflow. However, I'm going to teach you the best of both worlds using Meshmixer and Fusion 360 to get the job done, so you can go to 3D print and get your files ready to go. So without further ado, let's jump in and get started. So starting off, I'm going to open up Meshmixer, and in Meshmixer I'm going to import my scan. So this is Meshmixer, you can see it here. I'm going to put this here. And so starting off, you can see we have a scan, and it's a nice scan. We're going to modify this to bring the sound side over to the device side and prepare it for CAD. So hitting T in our transform, let's start off by immediately rotating this so that it matches up with our viewing cube in the top right corner. So I want to make sure that that is top, so I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. If you want it to snap to 90 degrees, make sure you hold your cursor above the dashes in the viewer. So if I do it out here, it's going to be nice and smooth. If I go towards, snap towards the size here, it's going to be full 90. I can click on the front here to look at it at the front, and then I'm going to drag this floor plane down to the floor plane here. And that's good enough for me. Let's hit accept. So now that we've got it oriented, let's check our scale, because if we need to make sure we're working in the right scale. So analysis, if we go, analysis, units and dimensions, you can see that this is 0.7 millimeters big, and that is very much incorrect. We want this to be probably 0.7 meters tall. So I'm going to change this to meters, and I'm going to keep my X, Y, Z the same, but just change the units, right? But now I'm going to go and actually flip this to millimeters again, and then convert 0.7 meters into millimeters. So now I get the correct scale that I know I work in inside of my CAD packages. Again, we're preparing this mesh for CAD, right? So we want to make sure everything lines up. So we got our orientation correct, we have our scale correct, all fine and dandy. Now let's dive in and sort of cut away some of the material we don't need from this scan. So I'm going to start off by hitting my S tool to select and get my lasso out, and I'm going to lasso away the floor. I'm not worrying too much about cutting parts of the shoe off, because I don't really need the shoes. Looks good to me. I'm going to hit delete. Let's cut those away. Let's cut away his shorts. I don't think we need, or the short leg. Get rid of that. Delete. And we're going to cut away the top of the thigh as well, just to make sure we only take what we need. Next up, we want to align the leg so that it's completely upright, so perpendicular to the ground. And in order to do this, we need to do the same thing. Hit select. Let's go and select that leg. And if we do that, you'll see that it's not selecting everything. So we can hopefully go into, we might have to actually just use our brush. So select brush, and let's go in and quickly just select everything. I don't know why I get that clip. So I'm using my parentheses button to sort of change the shape of the brush as I work, or change the size of it rather. So with something like this, I can now hit that transform T keyboard command as well to transform just my selection. I have snap on, which I don't want. I want it to be world snap, not local. So you can turn these on, which is pretty cool. And now I can take and turn this and make it straight. And I need to reposition it again over the shoe. Make sure it's there. And, look at it from the top. Does that look straight? I could probably do a little bit better job. So, rotate this. Look at it from the right side. Maybe rotate it back like so. And make sure that sort of fits. I'm not, again, too worried about the feathering or the division here. We're making references at the end of the day that are going to be used inside of CAD. Something else we can quickly do in here is we can smooth out this bump in the scan. So if I hit sculpt, I can take my brush, increase its size, hold down shift, and then just blend that down. Take away some of the texturing that is seen here in the legs. Looks good to me from there. So now we have two pieces. One's been corrected. We now need to correct the other one. So let's go and select again. So select lasso. Let's go and select our device. And hitting T on our keyboard to transform to a world space. Let's go and make this completely straight. Look at it from the side. Might have to make this completely straight too, just like that. Just to give us a sort of a neutral standing. Now I have to sort of double check just to make sure this isn't outrageously wrong. Just so look at that seam, just try to make sure that seam has as minimal distortion as possible when you work with it. So something like that. And then let's hit select again. So S on our keyboard, select everything on this side, and then we're going to hit Y on our keyboard to separate that out. So we have two bodies now. So I'll put that here. So two bodies. And now we need to align these one more time to the world space. So hitting T for transform. Let's make sure that this is nice and straight, looking, the feet and everything is looking forward. And then going to the other one, same thing, transform, look at it from the top. Let's move this into place. So it's kind of like where it needs to be. Perfect. So everything's looking forward now. If I look at it from this front, looks like we've got good straight up and down for each of them. I can bring this over here just to make sure. Yeah, it looks good. Good to me. Hit accept. Now finally we need to create a mirror of this particular one. So if I go edit, I can mirror that part over a plane. So I got to make sure my plane is pointing the right direction. Oh, come on. Move that device over. Oh, wrong side. It's going to go backwards. 180. There it is. 180. There we go. Accept. Now we have, in the same file, we have a left and a right. Hit my lasso, my select lasso, and select the part we don't want. And delete that. Hit T to transform what's left. And let's move that into place one more time just to make sure we're sort of in the right area. Perfect. So we have now prepared these meshes at the most basic level for print. So let's export these. So I'm going to export this as the sound side, prepared sound side OBJ. So I've already done this, so don't worry about that. The next one would be, save, export as the device side or prosthetic leg. And they are more or less ready to be used inside of CAD. So let's hop over into CAD now and finish the job. All right, so welcome to Fusion. Fusion is a parametric modeler and allows you to create products that are ready for 3D printing and allows you to reference scan geometry in a very meaningful way. Let's start off by creating a component for these new references we're bringing into the space. So I'm going to call this the device to start, and in the device container of Fusion, let us go to the mesh tab and insert one of these meshes we made. So the prosthetic leg, and center that, and we're going to move that to ground. We're going to rotate it so it matches our front and top, and we're going to put the origin, which is the dot and the lines in the center, in the most meaningful place we can. I'm going to put it right at the top of the terminal device or the foot. And I'll move this over here just like that and sort of get it so that this plane intersects right up the center line of the device. Now we have a physical shape. Let's create some section sketches for this as well so we get some 2D lines. So you can see that 2D line just show up on the main origin plane, which is great. If we right click, we can repeat that mesh section sketch command, and select body, select the section plane, and create a side profile. And then finally we can use the same body and these planes to create some cross sections of our device as well. I'm going to put a cross section, I think, right about here, which is where I feel like the device is going to end, somewhere around here. It has to usually be around the widest point of the socket. So there is our device, and we can hide our bodies now and take a look at the reference geometry we made inside of this component for ourselves. So that's great. In the top level assembly now, we can go to that new component button here, or again, right click on the top level and hit new component. Let's make this the sound side reference. In the sound side reference container, we now go to our mesh tab and load our sound side. Same thing, center it, move to ground, rotate it so it is facing forward, and then let's go to our right side. Let's put this in a meaningful spot. You know, if we need to see that origin, we can go into that tab and turn it on. And you can even turn on the device body as well to make sure we're properly aligned. So I'm going to align the shoe and the profile as best we can here. So right there. Let's go to the front side. Let's make sure it sort of lines up as well. And then finally we can fly around and just check to see if things are working. So if you're navigating, middle mouse click, drag is pan, scroll is zoom, and then shift middle mouse click is rotation. I'm using a space mouse. Highly recommend you guys get into space mice if you can. Look up a 3D connection, spelled with an X, space mouse. You will not go back once you're done. I think this placement needs to be improved a bit. So I'm going to hit M on my keyboard, select this mesh we just placed, look at it from the front, and just give it a bit of a 1 degree tilt. I can type that in, move it over, look at the intersection of the two as I work, and just try and get that to line up a little bit better. There we go, looks pretty good. So now we've got our reference for sound side, but we need to do those lines, I think, again as well. Those lines are going to be very useful. So let's hide our device so we don't get confused. Select our sound side, select our plane, and create a section on there. Right click to repeat, select our body, select our plane, hit OK. Right click to repeat, select that body, select this plane, and we're going to do a few of these ones this time just to do profile. So one here, right click, repeat mesh section sketch from here to here, and we're going to go up to, let's say about there. 1, 2, create mesh section sketch again, 3 to the widest point, and maybe 4 one more time to the top. So now we have our profiles, so we can hide our bodies, take a look at this, and this is going to help us construct or trace. We're going to have to essentially trace this whole profile, this curve network, for ourselves in parametric CAD so that we can create the equivalent in this program. So we have now our device and our curve network sort of mapped out for us. All we got to do now is just trace it, which is what we're going to do in the news component. So we're going to create a new component now, and this is going to be our Cosmesis. And inside this Cosmesis, we're going to turn on the origin and hide the other ones just to make sure. And we're going to now recreate this sketch. So in the solid space, we need to start by creating a sketch. It's going to ask us for which plane. I'm going to hit that plane on the side, and we're going to do the anterior and posterior lines first. So a lot of these are going to be made with splines. So I can click on the spline tool, holding down Control so that I don't snap anywhere. I can start to drop these lines down, and it's going to create a line for me, which is really nice. Same thing over here. We got to consolidate the device and the profile of the actual sound side limb at this point. So you're going to be interpreting a bit. It's not going to be the same both ways. Now that we've got both our lines, these lines can be moved around. So I can take a line and bump it around if I didn't match it perfectly, so no worries there. Each point also has a handle, which you can move around as well to help you with your shaping. Best rule to think of when you're doing this is less is more. Less points is more. The more points you have, the more wavy it gets. So you might start with this many points, but you might delete some later. You can just quickly go and select one and delete it out without any issue. One thing we do want to do here though is create a line between the bottom connections and create a line between the top connections, and then clicking on that line that we made, get rid of our device. Okay, get rid of our sound side reference as well. There we go. Now we can select it. Let's give that a horizontal and vertical constraint as well as our bottom friend here, so that they are perfectly horizontal and vertical. If we don't want them to be a full profile like this, which we probably don't want, we want to click on the top one and hit X on our keyboard to turn that line into construction geometry. So it's not going to, it's not going to create a path for us all the way around. That's going to be important a little later. So we've done that for this side, and let's do it for the other side now. So turning back on our sound side. Where is our sound side? There you are. Let's do the sound side, medial lateral lines. So we can select that plane, create a sketch, and now select our spline, and let's do the same thing on the sides. So these have to be at the same height as the ones we made previously. So I'm going to snap those in a similar way like we did before, but for now I'm just going to freely draw these and capture the profile. Finally, how do we reference the last sketch we just did? Well, if I turn off my bodies, this construction line we made earlier, I can ask that construction line to intersect our sketch plane that we're working on, and it will create a point. From that point, we can draw a line out and draw a line and snap them to each of these, and then go to our constraints at the top and ask those two lines to be horizontal. Same thing at the top. We're going to use the intersect. So I've got a, so project, include intersect, it's up here. You can pin this to your toolbar. You can also hit the S key to search for it, type in intersect, and then park it in your sketch shortcuts. So you can always reference it. So it's like right here, sketch intersect, select that construction line, hit enter, hit L on your keyboard for line, and then connect those two together. Do our constraints one more time. Make sure they're perfectly horizontal or vertical. And then I'm going to select those two lines and hit X on my keyboard just like before. And we're going to turn them into construction. Perfect. So we've got our longitudinal lines. Now let's make our horizontal lines, or our latitude lines. So we need sketch planes to draw on when we work. So I'm going to create some sketch planes. So we can create a sketch plane by offsetting from an existing plane. So this plane we can offset, up to where we placed that first one. Can repeat that command, offset all the way to this one. And then we can repeat and offset all the way to the top. Now I want this to be perfect. This needs to be perfectly on top. So instead of doing distance, we can change that to an object and then just snap it to one of those top lines. Same thing for the bottom. I want to do one more repeat offset going down, but instead of a distance, I want to change it to object, and object snap it to the base. So there we go. There's our planes for our latitude that we need to now sort of sketch in. So let's start with the bottom one. Now the bottom one needs to line up with a terminal device or a foot. So we need to actually have a reference for that, and our scan didn't have one. Luckily, I do have a foot available that I can call upon. So if you have a scan of a terminal device or even an image plane, you can use that as well. So I'm going to create a new component for this. I'm going to call this the foot. And in the foot, we're going to go to our meshes. I'm going to import a mesh, and I have one for prosthetic leg, the pylon foot. Perfect. So there's a pylon foot, rotate it 90, rotate it 90. I'm going to go to my front view, make sure it lines up with where I need it to be. And then I'm going to go to the side view and line it up so it needs to be, and then maybe give it a, there we go. Just a bit of a, oh, this is so terrible. There we go. Generally speaking, that would be a reference point that I would use. So say you have, say you have a reference like this. So I've brought the foot in. Let's go back to our Cosmesis and continue our work now. So I can pull these around now and just make sure they line up with our terminal device. You know, get that line where you want it to be. This one, put that up. There we go. Perfect. So now let's draw our first inside. Again, make sure you're inside the Cosmesis container. Let's draw this line, this sketch. So it's this sketch on this plane. We want to draw the profile. But not only do we want to trace the profile, but we want to snap it to these 4 lines. We need these 4 lines to connect. So same thing. We need to use the intersect command. Select our 4 lines. Hit OK. And then we're going to use that spline tool now to connect them. Now, a tip for doing lofting, which is what we're going to be doing, is you need to have the same number of points for every profile. You don't have to, but it really, really helps. So I'm going to choose, you know, the 4 main points plus 4 in between, and having everything connect that way. So, you know, throw your points down. Don't worry too much about, you know, them being perfect right out of the gate. But we can go in and sort of finesse this afterwards just to sort of capture what we want to capture before moving on. So let's pretend, for the sake of demo, that this is correct. And if it's not correct, well, we have to, even outside of the sketch, if we hit that finish sketch button, I can still go in and change this, but I can't move those without leaving the first sketch, because those beginning sketches drive this other sketch we've been working on. So I couldn't move those coordinate, like those 4 Cartesian points, because these sketches can come before, and I need to make sure that those are in place. Perfect, so there's our first profile. Let's go to our next one and repeat the process. Sketch, create a sketch, and we are going to do the same thing. We're going to intersect our 4 lines, and then we're going to create a spline 1 and sort of follow that profile that we made for ourselves with the orange line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't worry if it's not perfect. 6, 7, 8. And let's go in and just sort of push these around, use our handles to sort of match a bit more accurately. We're creating the smooth variation of this, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And indeed, it won't be perfect because we're going to be matching to the device pretty soon, not even to the sound side. So let's call that golden. So there's that profile. Rinse and repeat, do the same thing for this one now. Sketch click. And so hit S, intersect. Let's get that intersection done. Hit S on a keyboard for spline. Connect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hit escape. Now let's go in and quickly clean this up. Give it the right kind of shaping we're looking for. And you know, this is all pretty quick, pretty loose, right? And I'm very intentionally leaving it loose so that we can actually push and pull around later as we work too. Finally, last one, create a sketch on this top one. And we want to create the intersection points for these 4, which should all perfectly intersect this profile. Now let's turn on our sketches for our device real quick. Please turn on the device. Please turn on the sketches. Thank you. And if I hide my sound side for a second, it does match up. Oh, this one doesn't match up. So let's go back to our device quickly, and let's create from the bodies. Let's do a new cross-section mesh sketch for this body, I just need a line where we finish our sketch at. So again, I'm making sure that this reference is inside the container for device and not mixing it up with my reference or my Cosmesis. So hopping between these and essentially separating out your history so that each one has its own place. Perfect. So now I dive back into this top sketch that I just finished. You can see that our sidelines don't line up with the device. Right? Device. So we got to make sure we're gonna do something similar here, but we're gonna push and pull this into place after. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. And let's take a look at our bodies now. So that didn't work out. So let's bring this out. Let's bring this out. This one we kind of want to follow closely, but if you're printing in flexibles, which is probably what you're going to be doing, printing a Cosmesis like this, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a shove fit. There you go. So that is a curved network, and this now is ready to be used in morphing, or sorry, in a loft. So what is a loft? Well, a loft is one of the main commands in the create function, where you can go from profile to profile and create a solid. So let's use that. So from profile 1 to profile 2, profile 3, and profile 4, we can create a loft between them. However, these were just our latitudes, right? We want our longitudes included as well. And so profiles are one and the rails are the other. So hit that plus sign in the rail section to add a rail. So rail 1, rail 2, rail 3, and rail 4. Hit OK. There you have it. There's our device. Now it's not perfect, but it's mostly there. Flow and demo is there. We've got our matching terminal device. We now have curves that we can push and pull around. So for example, I can see that our device is not going to stay inside of this Cosmesis right now. So we have to actually match this first. So we can go around and we can quickly add some extra shaping in places we need it. I can see this, the socket's a little loose here, so we're going to bring this out. We're going to bring this out. Bring that out. So we're just, last minute shaping. We can go between the device and the sound side to make sure that, we are staying pretty close to what it was originally there. So turn off the sound side. And now we have a surface in our Cosmesis that we can now work with for printing. But right now it's solid. We need to actually shell this. So S key for search, type in shell. There's your shell command. Select the top, select the bottom. Let's give this a shell of 1/8 of an inch, let's say 3.18 millimeters. And let's make this 3 millimeters thick. Now let's turn on our device and let's do a check, a sanity check. So there's a inspect section of the Fusion. This allows us to create a section analysis, which is really cool. You can select a plane and look at the device through the inside just to make sure things are lining up. Same thing, we can do repeat, do a section on this side and double check. It's a little tight there, but otherwise everything's looking good. We get good clearance. Your analysis is now, now that we've made those, they live here, so we can flip between them as we work. And otherwise turn them off. I'm going to hide my devices and my references. Just focus on the final shape of the product we're working with. So this is almost ready to print. We've got a nice surface. This top edge though is a little thick. It's going to be really thick. So we can actually chamfer this top edge using a 2 distance measurement. Right now, if I do 2.5 or 2.8, let's say, of like a 3.18 millimeter wall, you're going to get a nice little lip. And then if we do 2 distance, we can drop the bottom one down much further. So that's going to be 2.8. The next one is going to be 1 inch. Just drop that down. So there it is, nice and easy. And this would kind of be ready to print. I think this would be ready to print. However, I don't know if it would work the best because your foot is going to move around a lot in the assembly as they walk, and this is going to cinch or pinch or pop, you know, if it's a flexible material. It also may rub on the socket up here too, so you might need to add tape. Furthermore, if this is a shove fit, you're going to need holes for sockets or for your Allen keys to be able to get at the assembly below in order to take it apart. So let's say, you know, in the middle of here, there should be a hole that's, you know, let's say 8 millimeters thick, 8 millimeters wide, for getting at an Allen key, you know, entry point. We can quickly go and add a new sketch for a hole and cut from this surface. We have an entry point. We might also want some sort of bottom on this so that it can, you know, move around. So instead of doing a flat bottom, maybe we can create a cut line on the device so that when we go to create this part, we can cut this down on these lines, and so we can hit D on our keyboard to dimension these. So this could be 110, and just give yourself that right angle. Hit OK, and I want to potentially split this body with this splitting tool. So you can split with that line across this body, create two different pieces, and then here's a tip trick. If you hit Q on your keyboard with that surface selected, you can, with a new offset, go in by -1. So now what you've done is you've created a lip, and this would be your cutting line to cut this device so that it can rock around after the fact. So with that now made as two pieces, let's quickly go in our search command, look up combine, and let's combine these two bodies back together so that they are now one body altogether. So there you have it. That was the full workflow on how to use Fusion 360 and Meshmixer to create a Cosmesis based off of a 3D scan. So if I bring back my device one more time, there you go. There you go. So from here, all we got to do now is take that Cosmesis, right click and export it. Oops, sorry, no, not export it. We want to right click it and save it as a mesh, as an STL, and save that out for our 3D printers. And then you can continue on your journey. So that's it. That's the raw tutorial. I really hope that helps. Let me know how this has impacted your workflows and what else you'd like to see in your digital O&P workflow journeys. And feel free to drop me a line at contact@opdigitaldesigner.com. Subscribe for more. Talk to you guys soon.